Billy Joe Saunders was all set to make the first defense of his WBO middleweight world title against Max Bursak on April 30th. But it's been announced today that he's actually pulled out of the fight, citing a hand injury. That show will still go ahead, and Hughie Fury versus Fred Cassie will now top the bill. Now, is it just me, or does there seem to be far more pullouts and cancellations on Frank Warren shows than there is on any of the other major promoters' shows in the UK? It always seems to be Warren shows that this stuff happens on. But anyway, obviously cancellations and pullouts happen on all promoters' shows. But to me anyway, it seems to happen far more on Frank Warren shows. As far as this Billy Joe Saunders situation, there's a lot of people questioning the veracity of the claim that his hand's actually injured. We do know for a fact, this ain't speculation, this ain't conspiracy theories, people. This is fact. Fighters do pull out with fake injuries all the time. We all know that David Haye was not injured when he pulled out against Manuel Charr. Let's just be real. So there's nothing wrong with speculating about the veracity of fighters' claims of injury. Nothing wrong with it at all. In this case, people are saying maybe Billy Joe pulled out with a fake hand injury because they're going to set up a rematch with Chris Eubank Jr. on the undercard of Fury Klitschko 2. And that would make sense. We know that they're going to be looking for some strong fights to put on the undercard of Fury Klitschko 2. Although, to my understanding, Frank Warren is not partaking in the promotion of Fury Klitschko 2. That's what Frank Warren said in a recent IFL TV interview of Kugan Cassius anyway, that he doesn't have any part of the promotion. You know, he's not handling any of the promotion for Fury Klitschko 2. Obviously, it's on Box Nation, and Frank Warren is a major shareholder, I believe, in Box Nation. I think the major shareholder. So obviously, he's keenly interested, and he's obviously Billy Joe Saunders' promoter. So, yeah, maybe it's possible to put Billy Joe on the undercard against Chris Eubank Jr., but I would have thought that maybe Frank Warren would want to make that a standalone show so he can be the promoter of it and capitalize off it more so than putting it on the undercard of a Mick Hennessy K2 show. You know, just speculation. Let me know what you think about it. But obviously nobody is disappointed that Billy Joe Saunders is not fighting Bursak. That's what we do know, or very few people are disappointed. Yeah, let me know how you feel about the situation, people. Do you think it's a genuine injury? Do you think that he's going to fight Eubank Jr. on the undercard of Fury Klitschko 2? Yeah, let me know how you feel. And just a side note about Frank Warren. Frank Warren has been coming out saying certain things this week. And I just want to make a comment on it because this guy, oh man. Firstly, Frank Warren, I think it was last week, did an interview in which he said that Shannon Briggs should not be fighting and that it is wrong for people to encourage Shannon Briggs to continue fighting. That's what he said, and he said it very passionately. He said it's wrong for people to be encouraging this guy to fight. And he equated Shannon Briggs to being not much different than Roy Jones Jr. in terms of how shot he is. Now, Shannon Briggs responded in an interview, several interviews actually, but the interview I saw was on Nothing Long TV. It was one of their unlisted videos. And in this interview, Shannon Briggs exposed Frank Warren because, excuse me, he exposed the fact, jeez, sorry. He exposed the fact that Frank Warren has actually tried to get Shannon Briggs to fight Derek Chisora when Chisora was still with Warren. And more recently, Frank Warren tried to get Shannon Briggs as an opponent for Hughie Fury. So all the while, he's telling people that it's wrong to encourage Shannon Briggs to fight. He himself is trying to get Shannon Briggs to fight. You know, it's just a typical case of Frank Warren and his control freak mentality, which any of you who have never, you know, maybe you haven't been following boxing as long. Maybe you haven't been following the career of Frank Warren that long. Maybe you ain't had any personal dealings with him. I don't know, or know anybody that has. But trust me on this one, Frank Warren is a massive control freak, in my opinion. That's what the guy's like, and he don't like. Shannon Briggs said it in a video. Frank Warren don't like the idea of a fighter doing things independently of him, particularly a fighter that he thought he had his claws into, and then the fighter's going to go off and do it independently. Frank Warren is a deeply vindictive man. Anybody who he feels has escaped his clutches, Frank Warren can turn very, very nasty and spiteful against them indeed. You look at all the fighters that have left Frank Warren. Look at the way he talks about them after they leave him. Before they leave him, he's praising them to the hilt. After they leave him, this guy's sticking the claws in. And, you might think that most promoters do that, but no, not to the level that Frank Warren does it. Not with that level of spite. I've never seen a promoter like that before. And obviously, Shannon Briggs wasn't signed to Frank Warren, but he believes that that's what it is. The fact that Frank Warren can't control him, and he thought he wanted to control him. He wanted to be able to be the one to take advantage of Shannon Briggs. This is what Briggs says. And because he couldn't, now he's turning spiteful on Briggs, and he don't want Briggs to get licensed. And, he's telling anyone that is encouraging Briggs to fight, you should be, ashamed of yourself, basically. It's a disgrace. You shouldn't be doing it. It's wrong. And all the while, this guy himself tried to get Briggs to fight, and he admitted it as well. So this ain't speculation. He admitted that when Kugan Cassius confronted him about it, he admitted that, yes, he did try and get Shannon Briggs to fight Chisora and fight Huey Fury. So the guy's a massive hypocrite. What a joke. And another one of the things that he's been saying, he's been heavily criticizing Charles Martin, as many people have. But he's going too far when he's coming out with statements like Audley Harrison could beat Charles Martin. People, have you forgotten the guys that Audley Harrison actually lost to? Yeah, Charles Martin got blown out in a couple rounds by Anthony Joshua. We don't know how good Anthony Joshua is just yet. Maybe Charles Martin will bounce back and he'll turn into a fairly decent heavyweight. We don't know. He did look terrible against Joshua, but again, when you've got two unproven fighters, you don't really know what a fight like that means until several years down the line, when you find out how good or bad both fighters are. But and Martin obviously has beaten guys, Tom Dallas and all these journeyman ex-contenders and all that type of stuff. He's beating these guys with relative ease. He stopped Zambano Love and all that, a guy who Shannon Briggs couldn't stop. So to say that he would lose to Audley Harrison in his prime, people, lost to Martin Rogan, who is literally a cab driver. That's Martin Rogan's profession. He's a cab driver. In Audley's prime, he lost to Martin Rogan. He also lost to Michael Sprott. Was knocked out cold by Michael Sprott, a journeyman fighter. And in the rematch with Sprott, he was getting battered for nearly the whole fight. 11 and a half rounds, he was getting battered by Michael Sprott. It was a one-sided fight. Until in the final round, he managed to catch Sprott with it was a wicked left hand and knock Michael Sprott out. So, let's put this into perspective. Audley Harrison beating Charles Martin. It's not inconceivable, but I think Frank Warren's going too far, and he's trying to denigrate not necessarily Anthony Joshua's achievement, but he's trying to denigrate the Matchroom show, because we know he's a big rival of Matchroom, and we know that he's constantly trying to get at Matchroom in these interviews all the time. Eddie Hearn particularly, to a lesser degree Barry Hearn, but certainly Eddie Hearn is a lot more diplomatic with the way he talks about Frank Warren than Frank Warren is when he talks about Eddie Hearn. Frank Warren just goes for the jugular. And sometimes, some of the things that Frank Warren says are valid about Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, definitely. I think one of the things where Frank Warren is bang on is when it comes to Matchroom's relationship with StubHub. And in fact, I was talking to someone online a few months ago, and they put it very, very succinctly. And I'll quote what they said in a second. But yeah, when it comes to the StubHub thing, basically it's a situation where Matchroom are allegedly selling a whole heap of tickets to StubHub, and StubHub are just doubling or tripling the price or inflating the cost of the tickets to a ridiculous amount, and they're buying these tickets in bulk. So as soon as the tickets go on sale, a lot of them are being sold well above market value, and it's forcing fans to go to StubHub and pay more than they're supposed to be paying for tickets. But yeah, going back to what the person said online, they said basically that Eddie Hearn is a promoter who treats his fighters well, but mistreats the public. And Frank Warren is a guy who treats the public well, but mistreats his fighters. That was basically it. He put it more succinctly than that, but that's basically the gist of it. And I think, in my opinion, that seems to be true. That's how it is. So yeah, Frank Warren definitely has some plus points in terms of maybe giving better value to the fans than Eddie Hearn does, a lot of the time. But the way he treats fighters has always left a bitter taste in my mouth. So anyway, rant over. Let me know what you think about everything I talked about in this video. It's your boy Hatman, I'm out.